unable to contain the spread and deadliness of COVID-19. So we will now look at what the key World Economic Forum and United Nations Development Program recommendations are with regards to COVID-19. First of all is flattening the curve. We always hear about flattening the curve. So flattening the curve obviously must be the top policy priority, and governments will have to expand the size and scope of support programs over this period of time. Now, later on, I'm gonna throw in some polls as well, similar to what Mark did, and you can answer it online. And this would be, the first question is with regards to flattening the curve. Now, let me show you how the numbers look like in different countries. So over in Dubai, where my compadre Lyndon is, this is how the curve looks like. So it had a peak around May, and then it sort of is fluctuating still. I think even at this period of time, it sort of went up a little bit, which created a bit of concern in the UAE. In Qatar, it has remained a bit resilient. You will see that it has somehow flattened. In fact, the numbers are below 300, and that's been quite holding at that number of below 300. And in fact, sometime on the 1st of September, Qatar will enter phase 4 of its return to normalcy in such a way that it'll increase the number of people back to office between 80 to 100%. What do you think is the curve in the Philippines? What do you guys think? This is how it looks like in the Philippines. So you obviously will see that the curve is going up. It's not really a bit tapering. I can show you what it looks like in the United States as well. And you know, my colleagues in the profession in the United States know that perfectly well. And around the world, this is how the curve looks like. So it looks like it's not easing up anytime soon. So we're looking at what the impact will be to all of us. So the second recommendation from the World Economic Forum is around how governments must coordinate on a global level. So there needs to be support for small and medium enterprises and larger businesses to maintain employment and financial stability. And many have been encouraged by the speed with which advanced economies around the world have rolled out support packages to companies. However, there is concern that the size of the packages may prove insufficient for the duration of the crisis. Governments, including regulators and central banks, must continue to coordinate policy on a global level to help maintain financial stability. So within countries, policy guidance must be clear and consistent across regulatory and government agencies. The COVID-19 pandemic and the associated economic crisis are posing huge challenges, raising many unknowns and imposing wrenching trade-offs. Both crises are global, but their impacts are deeply local. The policy response to both crises needs to be fast, even if it's rough around the edges, but countries cannot pull this off on their own. The global crisis requires global solidarity and coordination. Third is the need to revise budgets, change policies, and the policymakers must ensure that the financial system remains capable of safely meeting the public's need for financial services throughout or through digital channels. Advanced economies have moved to increase their support to emerging markets and developing countries through both bilateral and multilateral channels. But as the crisis in these countries unfolds, additional assistance may be required. Advanced economies and policymakers, as well as investors and financial institutions, must continue to develop and expand programs to support these countries. There needs to create financial fiscal space, raise revenues and avoid wasteful spending to channel more resources to public health, economic stimulus, and the social safety net. That means governments need to revise their priorities reflected in budget revenue, spending, and financing. By doing so, they can contain increases in fiscal deficits and surges in public debt. Governments should use stimulus funds and incentives for populations that need them the most. This would mean channeling sizable parts of such stimulus packages to small and informal businesses the vulnerable and the poor, and avoid the use of stimulus funds and incentives that enrich the rich or political allies. By coordinating globally, countries can address long-standing problems that undermine national budgets, such as tax competition, tax evasion via tax havens and transfer pricing, and fossil fuel subsidies. They should tax the digital economy as well. Global coordination is also needed to facilitate debt relief to heavily indebted countries. We also need to restart trade by reducing trade tariffs and open borders for goods, even while borders are closed to people. And it is also essential to safeguard and restore the supply chain of essential goods and services. Governments should also make it easier to conduct business by improving public services and making them accessible through digital technology. They should support small, medium-sized, and informal enterprises. Also, the financial systems must be capable to meet the public need of financial services through digital means. And finally, advanced economies need to support emerging markets and developing economies as well. So, what is COVID-19's impact to business? First, out of necessity, many CEOs have prioritized the now, supporting their people, customers, and suppliers, addressing supply chain disruptions, stabilizing revenues, aligning their businesses with evolving demand, and identifying growth pathways. Leaders are also rapidly turning their attention to what's next, a period of unpredictable and possibly muted economic recovery, with new competitive threats and opportunities, and quite possibly a decade of the never normal. So it's not going to be back to normal anymore. And against this backdrop, leaders face the urgency and complexity of reopening their businesses. And this is a huge conversation in many countries. To outmaneuver uncertainty, reopening also requires a program of reinvention. This presents an opportunity and a need for many companies to build the competencies they wish they'd invested in before the crisis, to be more digital, data-driven, and in the cloud. That's why I'm equally quite excited to hear what Jotham is going to talk about later on, and how this has reinvented our profession as well. So it's important to prepare for the new normal or the never normal. What's the impact to employees? So you will see companies experiencing unprecedented workforce disruptions, right? So therefore, options are needed on how employees will work in the short to the long term. There's also a shift to remote workforce to protect and empower and serve customers and establish business continuity. And of course, how to help employees survive financially. What's the impact to customers? So with these emerging new behaviors, organizations have an opportunity to accelerate and pivot to digital commerce by expanding existing offerings and creating new lines of service, like the retailers rallying to provide contactless delivery and curbside pickup services for consumers. This acceleration will force organizations to reimagine their digital strategies to capture new marketplace opportunities and digital customer segments. How about the impact to operations? So you will see a lot of restructuring for resilience is needed, a lot of acceleration to adopt agile ways of working, and empowering teams guided by purpose, driven by data, and powered by technology. So obviously you'll see that technology became a large focus in this period. So for those of you who are investing in technology, even technology mutual funds, you will have seen that over the last 3 months, if you had been invested in technology or technology mutual funds over the last 3 months, you would have made about an average of 20 to 25% growth over your investment in such a short period of time. The COVID-19 pushed companies to operate in new ways, which tested their IT capabilities like never before. So the IT infrastructure was put to test. Business continuity risks, sudden changes in volume really have an impact on companies. And of course, there's a need to apply lessons learned to better prepare for future disruptions, because the disruptions we're seeing today would most likely be repeated over and over again in the future. What's the impact to industry? So all industries definitely have been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, whether positively or negatively for others. So consumer demand patterns have shifted, consumer behaviors have changed, the global supply chains are disrupted and are still under pressure, and companies must therefore continue to adapt to new and uncertain market conditions. So these sectors obviously have been mostly impacted, like businesses dependent on tourism, hotels, airlines, luxury good traders, and retailers. So for example, I haven't been able to travel or make any business travels over the last, close to 9 months now. The manufacturers dependent on parts from affected countries have also been impacted, like those in automotive and technology. What's the impact to finance? So companies have had to act quickly to optimize resilience, rebalancing for risk and liquidity. So there's an immediate action needed to address short-term liquidity challenges, but also to solve for costs and profitability, and assess opportunities for growth coming out of the downturn, including opportunities for M&A. So what is the road to the new normal, or to the next normal, as we call it? So the coronavirus is not only a health crisis of immense proportions, it's also an imminent restructuring of the global economic order. So here's how companies and leaders can begin navigating to what's next. So I call it the 5 R's, or a 5R approach for global finance professionals. So what are these 5 R's? So first is resolve, second is resilience, third is return, fourth, reimagine, and fifth, reform. So taking that one by one. In almost all countries, crisis response efforts are in full motion. So a large array of public health interventions has been deployed. Healthcare systems are explicitly on a war footing to increase the capacity of beds, supplies, and trained professionals. Efforts are underway to alleviate shortages of much needed medical supplies. Business continuity and employee safety plans have been escalated, with remote work established as the default operating model. Many are dealing with acute slowdowns in their operations, while some seek to accelerate to meet demand in critical areas spanning food, household supplies, and paper goods. And yet, a toxic combination of inaction and paralysis remains, stymieing choices that must be made. Lockdown or not, isolation or quarantine, shut down the factory now or wait for an order from government. That is why we have called for this stage to resolve. Resolve the need to determine the scale, the pace, and the depth of action required at the government and the business level. So that's resolve. Next is resilience. The pandemic has metastasized into a growing crisis for the economy and the financial system. The acute pullback in economic activity necessary to protect public health is simultaneously jeopardizing the economic well-being of citizens and institutions. So in the face of these challenges, resilience is a vital necessity. So near-term issues of cash management for liquidity and solvency are clearly paramount for businesses. But soon afterward, businesses will need to act on broader resilience plans as the shock begins to upturn established industry structures, resetting competitive positions forever. So much of the population will experience uncertainty and personal financial stress. Third is return. So returning businesses to operational health after a severe shutdown is extremely challenging. So most industries will need to reactivate their entire supply chain, even as the differential scale and timing of the impact of coronavirus mean that global supply chains face disruptions in multiple geographies. The weakest point in the chain will determine the success or otherwise of a return to rehiring, return to training, and attaining previous levels of workforce productivity. Companies must therefore reassess their entire business system and plan for contingent actions in order to return their businesses to effective production at pace and at scale. Next is reimagination. So these shifts and their impact on how we live, how we work, and how we use technology will emerge more clearly over the coming weeks and months. Institutions that reinvent themselves to make the most of better insight and foresight as preferences evolve will disproportionately succeed. So therefore, there is really a need to reinvent. And I'm happy that Jordan will be covering that up next. Clearly, the online world of contactless commerce could be bolstered in ways that reshape consumer behavior forever. But other effects could prove even more significant as the pursuit of efficiency gives way to the requirement of resilience. The end of supply chain globalization, for example, if production and sourcing move closer and closer to the end user. And finally, reform. The aftermath of the pandemic will provide an opportunity to learn from a lot of social innovations and experiments, ranging from working from home to large-scale surveillance. With this will come an understanding of which innovations, if adopted permanently, will provide substantial uplift to economic and social welfare, which would ultimately inhibit the broader betterment of society, even if helpful in halting or limiting the spread of the virus. So that is our 5R for companies and even businesses. Now, are you impacted as a finance professional? Now, while I do go back to Roland's statement that we are lucky to be accountants, right? So
Right.
we have the basics, Roland. We have, I would say, we have the base of the pyramid, if you may. But like many of us are moving towards end of career. Well, speak for some people. But even if Mark was saying that he has been there forever, but I remember he was saying he was only 35. So let me show you how this is impacting our profession and effectively the professions of many people around the world. So I'm going to show you which roles are stable, which new roles have been created because of what's happened, and which roles have become redundant or will be redundant in the next decade. So if one of your roles or jobs is in this list, I'm sorry to tell you, you need to do something about that. So ready? Let me show you this. I'm gonna shut up for a bit. I want you to digest what is in this list, and then we'll see what we can do about it. So on your left are stable roles. In the middle are new roles that have been created. And on the right are roles that will be redundant.
Counting.
Oops.
Oops. Oops. We should be number one. We should be on top.
Roland, I would say Jotham to the rescue later on. So you will see stable roles. Of course, some of your jobs, like those that are moving to data or artificial intelligence, financial and investment advisors still will be required. Risk management specialists, effectively, will definitely be required. So new roles that have been created, you'll see here, artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists, digital transformation, big data, new technology, all of this are coming on board, and even I would say accelerated because of what's happening in our world in the past 3 months. And you will see, unfortunately, that some of the jobs that you may be holding right now are probably gonna be redundant in the next couple of years, right? So what do?
Change career.
We go back to our 5Rs, because the 5Rs that apply to business also apply to all of us in the finance world. You know, R, resolve. Resolve that you are going to do something about where you are now, where you are today. What are your options, right? Resilience, hang in there. This too shall pass, as they say. Third R, return. Return to books. Build your qualifications relevant to the times. So you would have seen the list. How do you make yourself relevant? As accountants, we already have the base. There are many ways for you to build on your qualifications. There are many resources out there. Harvard, for example, is offering many online courses. Some of them are free, some of them for a fee. But it gives you that level edge to bring you to what's happening today to make yourselves relevant. I've seen many programs offered by Wharton, for example. There are many resources in EDX or Coursera or Stack Skills that brings you to a level of competence with a strong base of accounting that makes you relevant in the next decade. So you need to reinvent yourself, reimagine what else you can do. And finally, reform. It's time to change for the better. We can do it. As Roland is saying, we're lucky to be accountants. We have the base. Follow the 5 R's, you'll be fine, right? So these were the resources that I have used to build this conversation. So I looked at the World Economic Forum. I looked at Accenture, materials from Accenture, from Deloitte, McKinsey & Company, as well as from the United Nations Development Program and Grant Thornton as well. So that's all I have to say. Let's connect. Find me on LinkedIn or send me an email. If you have any questions, fire away.
All right. So if there are no other questions, once again, on behalf of the core group of this Picpa International Zoom webinar project group, we would like to thank you, Greg, for a very informative presentation. Not only that, I also want to recognize that, I have not forgotten you to be supporting our events. For the information of everyone, Greg was also a global guest speaker during our 7th Global Convention 2016 at Orleans Hotel, Las Vegas. All right. So I did not forget you. Okay. Another thing, I like your 5 R's. I like your 5 R's. Did you know that our core group needs only 1 more R? We are 4 R's right now. Namely, myself, Roland. Number 2, Rene. Number 3, Ray Eugenio. And number 4, Rusty Bernardo. We are 4 R's. So we are calling for
5 R's.
We have additional 1 hour.
Who is that?
Radford.
Oh, okay. All right.
No,
All right. The 5th R, by the way, is Radford.
Yeah.
Radford.
R.
Radford.
Radford. I have 2 hours actually.
Yeah. Radford Bradkins. Okay. All right. Another thing. With your permission, Greg, like I said earlier, we shall be, emailing your most recent resume, and together with your presentation to all the participants here, including you, and you will receive 2 certificates. All right. Okay. Another thing is, we are still inviting guest speakers for, like I said, the September 19, September 20 for Philippine setting time season. It doesn't have, if you don't feel like you want to do it, you could also recommend to us whom you would like to be a for September 19 or September 20. All they need to do, or all you need to do, is send me an email with your resume, most recent resume, and an electronic copy of your presentation. We recommend actually PowerPoint to be more easier to download in our zoom.us website. Plus, it's not really by the way, the theme is, like I said, COVID Part 2, but it doesn't have to be COVID topics, and all of those topics doesn't have to be COVID, as long as it is about economics, finance, taxation, preferably international taxation, because this is global. And like I said earlier, we give you the full authority to update your resume that you have been a guest speaker in this global webinar as of August 29, August 30, your time. Okay. Last but not least, we will have a short break, maybe just 5 minutes. But during that time, we don't want everyone to be leaving the screen. If there is somebody among you who wants to share anything about your, about your profession or about your chapter or about, oh, by the way, I don't want to forget. So, like I said, thank you very much, Greg, for your presentation. That is 5-star. All right. Okay. So, so if there is anyone here who wants to share something about, your profession, your business, what you're doing, or your updates on your chapter, because actually we are now in the process of course, even with this COVID season, we are still in the process now, before the year end, of reviving the Picpa chapters all over the world, but we are starting with, of course, California, and then other states in the US, and then global. Because let's face it, we cannot control time, and that is what most of our Picpans are getting, into retirement, or they are going into some other field, and that's why our membership are not as good as before 5 or 7 years ago. But guess what? There is a cure for that. And that is what? Invite new and young members, particularly young members. And we are even allowed to invite associate members, not regular members. Associate members, as you know, of course, everyone knows that. An associate member does not have to be a Filipino CPA. As long as he or she is in the accounting field, or finance, or tax, you can invite them to be an associate member. The only thing, the difference is they are not voting members. They are not voting members. That's the only difference between an associate member from a regular member. But guess what? The associate members are easier to increase your membership, and they are more enthusiastic to attend because they feel like they are promoted. All right. Not only that, indirectly, you will be helping them to become a future CPA. So that is the beauty of encouraging or inviting an associate member. It works both to the benefit of the chapter and also for the associate member, because they will have an idea how to become a regular member to be a regular CPA to pass the board exam. And last but not least, okay, from your topic, Greg, I got an idea which I want to share with the people or the attendees today. We would like really to update our own personal background and character in order to have, improve ourselves and get extra income, no matter how small it is, as long as we like what we're doing. If you do not mind, I want to give you myself as a good example. All right? Okay. Did you know that most of the people here in California and the Bay Area, in San Francisco, they don't know that I am a CPA. Most of them, they know me as a dancer. All right. Most of them, they know me as a guitarist, and most of them, they know me as a DJ. Very few knows that I am a CPA, only the Picpans. All right. So that is one thing. Another thing, I teach online at UC Silicon Valley. And that is with your CPA credentials, you are a very good candidate to be teaching online, because right now the booming business are the schools that have online learning, particularly accounting. All right. So that is another way to get, more credits to your background. All right. And, last but not least, please, even if you are thinking of retiring, make sure that you do not retire your brain, so that Mr. Alzheimer's will not visit you. Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Alzheimer's is looking at brains which are stagnant, and we don't want that. Anything you do, anything that, if you have a what do you call this? If you have any hobby, just go for it, and still, it will still work with your brain. Our brain should not be stagnant. Do not say, and do not feel within you that you are a retiree. No, you are a so-called always semi-retired. Don't say I am a retiree, because if it goes psychologically to your brain that you are a retiree, your brain will retire. All right. So don't say that you are a retiree, even if you are really a retiree. Just say I am a semi-retired. All right, and then do all the things that you were not able to do when you were working. All right, do that. Okay. So, any other questions before we have a 5 minutes break, or
Roland.
who wants to say something?
Roland, may I?
Yes, the floor is open.
Hello?
Yes.
Well, thank you. This is Mark. And
All right, Mark.
this is for anyone in the United States that is practicing in public accounting.
All right.
There have been a lot of complaints about how peer review is conducted, and I am putting a group together to try to overhaul and defeat some of the problems with peer review, making it once again educational rather than punitive. If you have any interest, shoot me an email, let me know, and I'll let you know when we're going to put our first virtual meeting together, and we'll see if we can't fix some problems in the profession. And that's all I wanted to say. And by the way, great presentations. So thank you, Greg. And also thank you to, wait, I got your name, Lyndon. Great presentations. Sorry I didn't say so before.
All right, count me in as number 1, Mark.
I will, thank you.
All right. Who's number 2?
I am.
Yeah, that's the peer review, right?
Excellent.
Yeah. So anytime you want to decide to join Mark's peer review, just shoot him an email or shoot me an email. I'll be happy to forward it to Mark so that
Wonderful.
you could join us. All
Thank
right?
you.
You're welcome. So any other person, any other among you who wants to say something? Because we have 10 more minutes. This is a break time, but we'll give the 10 more minutes before we introduce the next speaker, please.
I have a question for Greg. Greg, are we not doing your poll at the end?
Sorry?
Are we not doing your poll at the end?
We can certainly. You can run it as a host as well, Bradford. I think that should give people like a 5-minute Q&A.
Yeah, it's up on the board now, right now.
All right. Yeah. Did you want to do that, everyone? Now that we time?
Yeah, that can be our break.
Or yes or no question mostly.
Yeah, it's just yes or no.
On where people are at the moment in terms of, I think how they are during the coronavirus. Something.
Yeah, we'll answer now during the break.
Questions there. And I was thinking, I think earlier with Mark, and if you want to see an audit trail, I'm having used Zoom for a fair bit. You can actually use Zoom for polling, even for quizzes, and you can record their answers and download that on an Excel for audit purposes.
Oh, that is a good information. Thank you, Greg.
And Roland, if you guys are interested to learn more about LinkedIn, I did a presentation in the Middle East around LinkedIn. It's called From Social Distancing to Social Connecting, using LinkedIn.
Okay, are we friends in LinkedIn, Greg?
Of course we are. Come on.
All right.
So Greg, are you doing another LinkedIn presentation or what?
I do have a LinkedIn presentation. I presented that in the Middle East in July, if I'm not mistaken.
So is it still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. I can make a so-called because I have quite a few. I don't know if you see my number of my contacts in LinkedIn. I have quite a few. Did you want me to forward some emphasis regarding that to my contacts, LinkedIn contacts?
No, 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 let's take we'll discuss that offline.
All right.
I think people may have finished with the poll read for the fifth hour. Would you like to share the result?
Go ahead, Radford.
Okay, I'll share. Let me share the result. Okay, I'm gonna share the result now.
Please, thank you. Share the screen.
There. So, for example, in question number 1, they believe there's already a flattening of the curve. 64% saying yes. You believe your countries are cooperating on the global level. Majority are saying yes, working from home. I think people are back already at 55% no. When countries implemented work from home, my company was ready with its IT solution. Very good to see that 64% of the companies were ready. My company was impacted, 91% yes. Did you think your company acted promptly? Very good to say. Good experience. There's different number when we ran this poll, Bradford, when we conducted the same thing with the Middle East. So it's interesting to see that there are different parameters working here. Yeah, different results from the polls, definitely. But thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
Okay, so anyone else who want to say something before we have still 5 minutes?
How much longer are we gonna endure COVID's travel restriction?
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Maria, please. Go ahead.
It's Karen.
Oh, Karen. All right, sorry. All right, go ahead, Karen.
Yes, I just have actually a few questions. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not a graduate of accounting, but wanted to have what's that? A board exam or something about my course, but I'm a profession in accountant, but wanted to have like CMA po.
I see.
Yeah.
So where are you based?
I'm here in Doha, Qatar.
Oh, you are in Qatar. Okay, let's
Yes.
see. And you want to be a CPA?
I hope so, but wanted to have it for CMA first.
All right, CMA. Okay.
Yes.
Where do you plan to practice the CMA profession?
Actually, I already tried to attend for an orientation for Picpa Doha last month, I think, for the orientation of CMA exam.
Okay.
And yeah, I see the orientation and the payment methods, but yes, I am really planning to to take the exam if within this year po, or hopefully by next year if this pandemic is over.
All right.
Because yeah.
Okay, so since you are based in Doha, I think it is just proper that I let Greg answer you, give him a chance to give his own, recommendation to you. Well, how about that, Greg? Please.
Yeah. I think Karen is a question between CPA or CMA. I think it depends on what kind of work do you do for your company as an accountant. Do you do the financial statements or do you do analysis? I think the CMA that's most popularly used, at least in Qatar, is the American version. There's the Australian version of the CMA as well. which I think in the Philippines, they're looking at these too, but I think in Qatar, it's more the CMA US version, which is the review that Picpa is running here. So I think that it would be practical for you to try the CMA first. I think the level of tests are different from the CPA. If you're pursuing CPA, I think when you've done your CMA already, I think it's best you go directly to the US CPA. And I think from that perspective, that can also be studied here. Roland certainly can help out with regards to that. But you know, if you expect to practice outside of the Philippines, then you go for the global qualifications.
All right. Thank you, Greg. In addition to that, Karen, as Greg mentioned, I have two suggestions to you, if I may. Number one, because you are based in Qatar, you are welcome to join as an associate member of Qatar, Picpa Qatar. That is the first thing you need to do, which I suggest or I recommend, so that you will be able to join the meetings of Picpa Qatar. Because later on, once you become a CPA, you can be a regular member, not only as an associate member of Picpa Qatar, and even Picpa National Office, and even Picpa California, San Francisco, or Picpa International. We would be happy to have you. All right. First recommendation. Second recommendation, I agree with Greg's suggestion that if you want to go take the CPA exam, especially you are in Qatar, I'm sorry to say this, you don't even need to take the Philippine CPA board exams. I can help you to take the AI CPA exam. You will have an AI CPA certificate. If you are interested, shoot me an email, picpainternational@yahoo.com. I'll be happy to give you more details on how to get the AI CPA certificate in the US. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sir Roland and
Oh,
Sir Gray. Yeah, I appreciate your recommendation and will be willing to email you
Oh, sure.
and ask for, yeah, actually, I already emailed you and Sir Greg regarding how to be part of an associate of Picpa Qatar. Yeah,
I'll take
that's,
that forward, Karen.
yes.
I'll get you in with Picpa here.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank
Okay.
you, Sir Greg.
You're welcome. Okay. So basically, if there are no other questions, I think we're done with our break time. Sorry, the break time still chatting, but